in all 5 boroughs, as well as the defender's offices and various judges who refer young people who come into their courtroom directly into Exalt. One of the things that we like to say is that we operate as an apolitical organization, and so that has allowed us the ability to build partnerships with individuals who often stand on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to the criminal justice system and criminal justice reform. After 2017, we of course expanded our referral pipeline to include various CBOs and nonprofits, community organizations that all refer young people directly into Exalt. So once a young person is referred to Exalt, I should make mention that we are not a court-mandated program in that it is a volunteer program. So while judges and attorneys will refer into our program, we do have an extensive assessment process, and young people have to opt into the change that Exalt is offering. This is largely because we recognize that getting any person to do something is always easier when they are their own advocate for going into that program. And so our assessment process is exhaustive and lasts roughly about 3 weeks. And so it is combining a variety of different assessments, including our educational assessment, which looks at where the young person is in their educational trajectory, as well as a criminal justice assessment for us to get a better sense of how to support that young person, particularly if they have an open case with their criminal justice involvement, as well as a candidate assessment and resource assessment, which are looking holistically at the different levels of support and the different level of resources that young people may need for us to make sure that we build really an ecosystem around them to support them in all the different areas that they may need focus on that doesn't come directly within the purview of what Exalt does. So once a young person is assessed and interviewed and deemed to be a fit for the program, they are offered an acceptance. We use very intentional language with our model and our assessment process. As we know, most young people that are connected to the criminal justice system don't often have positive reinforcement language that is given to them. And so we make sure that we're using language such as you've been selected because of your amazing potential. You've been selected because we recognize that you have the great potential for greatness. And so then our young people have to accept the acceptance. Once they are entering into our program, they then enter into our pre-internship phase. This pre-internship phase serves a dual purpose. One, to reconnect them to their love of learning and their thirst for education. And then also to prepare them for the internship phase by starting to build on their foundational professional development skills. In terms of the former, one of the things that we've learned over the course of the 20 years is that young people don't lack for a love of learning. They lack for a love of learning in some of the institutions they are forced to learn in. So without getting into a diatribe on public education, our young people come to us really eager to have discussions and interactions that are talking about different topics that are directly related to their lived experiences, something that they often don't get within their public education system. And so our curriculum, which has been rigorously researched, is both culturally relevant and culturally responsive. For the first time in many of our young people's lives, are curating discussions around things that our young people have some very keen opinions on, but haven't necessarily had the forum to have these conversations. So we're discussing things such as school to prison pipeline, mass incarceration, gang culture, toxic masculinity, and a variety of other topics which then reinvigorate our young people's love of discussion. What we've seen is that spark of learning for many of our young people come back and have profound effects on the way they interact with their own school environments, which haven't changed, but our young people's perspective on what education and schooling has. And so we start to see and have seen drastic improvements in both their school performance as well as their attendance. Running parallel to that, council, is our support of our young people in development of their professional skills. Our young people come to us having no prior work experience, which is a requirement of our program. And so what we try to do is to build on their professional skills really in a way that will prepare them for the internship with some foundational skills that I think we take for granted, or individuals that have professional networks that can teach them these skills from early that we sometimes don't think about how important they are. So we're doing things like resume building, cover letter building, professional dress, how to time manage. All of these different elements, which, as I said, prepare them for their internship phase. Our internship phase has been a foundational principle of our program model for our 20 years. And so what we do is we place young people in 8-week-long internships, paid internships, at a variety of different high-yield, high-sector jobs across New York City. One of the things that I should also mention that is really important and integral as we think about economic mobility for not only our young people, but also for this model in Syracuse, is that we've also always paid above the minimum wage. And so our young people, beginning in week 3, begin to get paid $18 an hour over the course of their duration in the program. I should mention also that a key part of this is that we do not ask any of the 150 internship partners that we currently have to directly pay our interns. We fundraise every dollar that we pay our young people through our internship program. This isn't.
Did you raise the money?
We raise the money, yes.
Because as I'm looking at this, we're getting 1.5 million, correct?
Yes.
And I'm looking at the staffing and all the
Yeah.
overhead, and it's really kind of top heavy. So I was just wondering about that 1.5 to cover all of that.
Yes, so one of the things that I should mention, Council, also, not only in that 1.5, we also have private and philanthropic support for the Syracuse application that is also going to support not only our staffing model, but also for our stipends as well. Our rent, of course, for our location here. And so while the DCJS money is a large amount of the money that is being given for the Syracuse application, we also, through our model, have also private and other support for the replication as well.
So you already have those philanthropical people lined up?
Yes, we do. So we have roughly about, including the DCJS grant, roughly about $2.1 million in committed funds for the Syracuse application.
And are those entities local, or is that individuals you've already had contacts with
Great
prior
question.
for the New York City organization?
Great question, Council. So
we don't want to pull from organizations that are already doing the work here and double dip into.
Great question. So it's not, yes, it's relationships that we've built outside. And so we have, for instance, a national nonprofit, the Youth Hope Foundation, which has been a supporter of not only ours in New York City with our replication and scaling to the 5 boroughs, but also is very interested in supporting the replication in Syracuse. We also have the Schultz Family Foundation, which is connected to Starbucks. And so this has always been, Council, our funding structure for Exalt is to have a diversified funding structure that leans on corporations, government, as well as the philanthropic and private community. And it is a financial ecosystem that we are replicating here in Syracuse.
Should we be worried about the Schultz Foundation?
We should not be worried about the Social Foundation.
I have one more question.
Of course.
I'm looking, this is not on the financial end, but I'm looking at the structure, the way it's set up. So it says you're going to take in 10 from October to November.
Yes.
And then from January, you do 10 more. So at any point, do all of these 65 people come together, or are they still just separate?
Great question, Counselor. So we're looking to do it in 5 cycles. I should also say the way that our program is structured. So we call them not classes, but cycles. And so we have launched in New York City, we're launching cycles all year round. That same structure will be in Syracuse. So there's 65 young people will be spread over 5 different cycles. So if you look at the breakdown, it's going to be for the 5 cycles, 10 to start for the first 2, and then increasing to 15, 15, 15.
Are they ever going to come together?
No.
All
So
65?
what we will do for the first, most likely 3 cycles, is start one cycle when the other cycle ends. Our Syracuse replication is a pilot version, and so it will be a shorter program model than on New York City for this first year. This is intentional. We recognize that Syracuse is a very different ecosystem than New York City. And so we want to be able to not only begin to serve the young people of Syracuse, but also begin to learn about Syracuse and the different areas that we need to have really in our purview to make sure that we're doing this correctly. The idea is, Counselor, to get to our full 4.5-month model. But for these first 5 cycles, as one ends, we will start the other one.
And I know you're working closely with Pastor Lateef. So the 10 youth that you're going to take in, they're referred to you?
Yes. So talk a little bit about our referral process and what we've done so far. So we really want to lean on for our referrals directly the judiciary of Syracuse. We've actually built a really strong partnership starting off with the Department of Probations, who we have been meeting with since the start of this replication effort, which, to let everyone know, has had implementation parts of it for the last 3 years, led by our CEO, Dr. Giselle Castro. We've also been making inroads with the judges that service the youth in Syracuse, specifically the Honorable Judge Cecil, who is actually convening a group of the attorneys in Syracuse, as well as some of the DAs for a meeting to present Exalt on 11/18.
So one more quickie. I'm reading here. You have to escort them to the bathroom?
So what we do to answer that question, we always, again, want to make sure that we recognize that we're dealing with young people that are at different phases of their change and transition. It isn't a 4.5-month program, counselor, and so when young people come into us, they are very different than when they leave 4.5 months later. And so for the start, as we're getting to know them, as well as they're getting to go in their process of change, there is a high level of oversight also. We're also recognizing, as this is the Committee of Public Safety, just like New York City, we are responsible for the public safety, as judges and the judiciary refer directly to us. And so as they're going along the stages of changes, we do want to have a level of oversight with them to support them along their trajectory. I will say that who they are at the end is not who they are at the beginning, and that is all of the process over the 4.5 months.
So, so are all these people already, I mean, we haven't approved this yet, but I mean, a program manager, administrative assistant, teacher, program coordinator, like, they already been identified?
Great question, Council. So they have not. And so the initial launch cycle will be staffed by our program leadership team, including myself, for these first 1 to 2 cycles. There's a particular reason for this. So number one, we recognize that this program model, it does take a while to learn. It is a very dense program model in our ethos and the way that we operate with youth development, and we want to do that responsibly. And so we believe that having the individuals that know this model the best, including myself and the rest of our program leadership team, are the best ones to implement to start off. I say that to say that we are beginning the process of identifying the talent to actually have hired for the Syracuse model. This will unequivocally be a for Syracuse, by Syracuse endeavor. We just want to make sure we're engaging that responsibly. So one of the things we've already started doing is meeting with some of the career services departments at the local colleges. We had a great meeting with Lemoyne College last week, as well as SUNY Onondaga. And so we will be looking at some of the career services departments to identify talent, as well as connecting with the different CBOs and individuals in the community who may know individuals who would be a great fit for this model and have a talent for youth development and service.
Okay, and where are you based, where are you going to be based out of?
So we're currently looking at space. We were looking at space last week. It is looking, as of right now, as the Syracuse EOC. Location will be where we're looking to house a co-location, with the idea of when the model does expand and we go to our full model, we will have a permanent space. Syracuse EOC represents a great location because they also have the built-in workforce development programs that are in there that we do want to be able to funnel our young alumni into once they are finished with the core program.
And do you have a timeline that you think you will be in a permanent space? Although, that does work. I'm just more concerned about some of the issues that we have. We're territorial.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a definitive timeline right now. I think our more important focus right now is, one, continuing to get a better understanding of the Syracuse community by replicating small and starting off small. The full model, again, once we feel comfortable that we've been integrated into the Syracuse community enough and built up an ecosystem with the different parties that are going to play a big role in that, I think that's when we will definitely consider permanent location.
So you said, excuse me. You said that you get referral, right?
Yes.
And a judge would, and just going through our conversation before, the judge would refer a child,
Yes.
at this point, a young adult in a sense, right? Will refer this young adult to you.
Yes.
And what if they say no?
The young adult?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have that happen at times in New York. As we said, we're a volunteer program. We will then go back to the judge and say that we do not feel that Exalt is the right fit for the young person at this point. What we have done in the past is also, and this is why building the ecosystem of collaboration is so important, we will often recommend other programs that we have a partnership with that we feel may be a better fit for that young person. And so, Councilman, to really get to the depth of your question, we don't leave even the young people that are referred to us that may not be a right fit for the program out to flail in the wind. We often try to give the judges or the referring parties some different organizations that we work with that we feel may be a better fit for that young person.
Because I do know that here, you know, we may not have all the resource we need in our community here, but there are those spaces where, you know, these young people could also benefit, but some of the barriers is that, you know, some of them don't want to, you know, there may not be an infrastructure or at least a way for them to go there, you know, but there's help. Some of them don't want to take it.
Absolutely, and I do want to stress to the council that we are coming into Syracuse really in the spirit of collaboration, and really in the spirit to those organizations that you're speaking about, getting to know them, getting to know their leadership, and also working with them to support the youth of Syracuse as a whole. You know, we have a very specific, we like to say, lane that we fall into, which is serving young people who are directly impacted by the criminal justice system. But those young people have a plethora of different resources that they need to be successful. We purposely do not try as an organization to be a jack of many trades, a master of none. And so we recognize that the different resources, whether they be food insecurities, housing insecurities, those other things, that there are other organizations, not only in New York, but Syracuse, that focus on that and do that well. And so we want to build that collaborative spirit with those organizations to refer our young people if they're not a fit or if they need different resources that we don't necessarily provide.
Mm-hmm. So if a 15-year-old is referred by a judge, for example, because you deal with 15 to 19-year-old, if a 15-year-old is referred to you by a judge and they somehow don't want to take it, obviously it's 15 years old, how do you go about that? Because a 15-year-old really is a minor, right? And there's got to be some you know, guardian or somebody over here. How do you involve guardians?
That's a great question. So regardless of whether they're 15 or 19, it is still the young person's choice. We are very youth-driven. And so, again, we recognize that getting an adult to commit to 4.5 months is difficult, let alone a teenager. And so while we do recognize, of course, they're minors, we do not want anyone going through our program who is forced to be in here, because it will absolutely impact not only their commitment, but also the outcomes that they have for the program. The program is intensive. You know, we're placing young people, and we've already identified some pretty high-level internship partners in the Syracuse community that have agreed to come on. We want to make sure that those young people are brought into that process.
I have a question. Marty, mind if I go?
Yes, go
Thanks. Jason, wanted to talk about the evaluative component. When we look at the deliverables and the performance measures here, they're fairly general. They talk about more of your evidence of effort rather than your impact. So thinking about impact both at the individual level and the organizational level, you know, what does it look like, feel like, sound like? And how do you know that the model that you've been implementing with success in New York will be relevant here? What are your, you know, triggers for some type of change in model? You know, of course, correction if Syracuse is different from New York.
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, looking at our court advocacy outcomes, which I think are the foundation of when we think about how this is changing the trajectory of young people's lives. So historically, as I said, we have 65% of our young people that come to our program with open cases. 75% of those young people historically have had their cases either dismissed or reduced. And so I think, as we all know, having criminal justice involvement has exponentially negative effects for a young person's trajectory in the not only education field, but also with their housing and their job prospects. So in a lot of ways, I think council members, we think about that as one of our major outcomes. We talk about this really giving our young people their life back. I think the other part is when we think about the contribution that we're making to young people experience a level of economic mobility. And so our young people, again, as we pay them $18 an hour, not only are they getting a chance to gain economic mobility legally, they're also getting increased exposure to fields and sectors that they may be interested in and entering into their career fields, and also building valuable networks to be able to support them regardless of what their post-secondary track is. As we all know, your network is your net worth. And so our young people often are coming from communities where they do not have the ability to build strong networks that will support them either with their educational or professional journey. Exalt gives them that. And also gives them the employability skills to be able to utilize past their involvement with Exalt. I didn't get to mention the alumni program as well as we talk about success metrics, But one of the key things that we do in our alumni program is really support them with their post-secondary track. And we say post-secondary track intentionally in that we're not a college or bust program. And so our outcomes for our alumni program are measured whether our young people choose to go through college, and we support them in that, not only with their college readiness, but also with scholarships, as well as free college tours, free college visits, application support, but also with their workforce development, which actually gets them into the workforce, earning money, building on their economic mobility that they had in their internship program. I should say from an evaluations perspective, we plan very keenly to have this model rigorously evaluated after the first year. We've identified MDRC, which is a national recognized evaluation firm, to do the evaluation after the first year, to not only assess our effectiveness within the Syracuse community, but also what it looks like to sustain and expand within Syracuse to our full model.
And in terms of that long-term outcome, do you have longitudinal data or cohort data from New York, and how long do you try to follow
We
your
absolutely do.
participants?
And we can share some of those studies
I'd be
with this
curious.
council, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
One of the key studies that was done was through NYU's Metro Center, and also Dr. David Kirkland, which is actually council member, one of the reasons why from that study that we were able to expand from Brooklyn to the 5 boroughs, in which we work with DAs at all 5 boroughs.
Yeah, and as far as, you're a nonprofit,
We are.
501c3, okay.
Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
The court advocacy component aims for sentence reduction of vacated cases. And what situations would these qualify? And what type of, can you engage, what type of crimes or they may commit?
Absolutely. So the only crimes in New York City, which and will also be replicated in Syracuse, that we don't serve that young people have are arson, sexual offenses, or murder. These cases, one, are often not referred by judges for youthful offender status or, yes, for sentence reduction, but all other cases and all other charges we do support.
So you have to look at each case?
Yes,
Okay.
individually.
Okay, thank you.
Just another question. I want to kind of piggyback off of Councilor Rouser when she talked about the families.
Yeah.
Because we know that we can take these young people, we can have them all day, we can give them the best outcome available under your guidance, but they go back into the same household. So what do we do with that?
So it's a great question, Counselor. As I said, I should reiterate earlier that we want this to be youth-driven. We recognize, exactly to your point and Councilmember Rouse's point, that the families can sometimes be an impetus to a young person's advancement. In that, and I have had experience working in 2-gen programs, one of the things that I know I found in my career is that when you service both family and student, you end up spending more time servicing the family than you do the young person. We, again, want to recognize that our work is youth-focused and youth-driven. Which is also another reason why, and I know we were talking to the council member last week, we don't service younger students, because the younger we go, the more that is parent-driven. So we do involve the parents in terms, particularly for young people that are 18 years or younger, when we're doing the actual intake and assessment process and letting them know what the program is. Of course, they have to sign consent forms. But again, we don't have any necessarily active services within our program model that directly service the family. And we do believe that part of that is it would compromise the amount of resources and ability we have to directly service the youth. I will say that in New York City, our program coordinators who are responsible for interviewing and the assessment of the young people, where they can in that initial phase, we do try to involve parents in them understanding the program. And of course, young people's parents and families are invited to our graduations, but we do not directly provide any supports to the families. But we do believe, again, that our work with the young people does impact the overall family dynamic. Again, we're paying young people $18 an hour, so what they choose to do with that money, whether it's contributing to the home and the overall economic ability of the home, does help. But again, from my experience, 2-generational program approaches often lead to the program focusing more on the family than the actual youth.
And I get that, but if I come from a, not to be, you know, from a drug-addicted family,
Yeah.
and then I go back home, and my mother doing drugs, when I go home, everything you gave me from the earlier part of that day is wiped out.
We understand. We understand that. You know, again, I think in that type of situation, what we would do, particularly if the young person is coming to us and saying that this is affecting their ability to come to the program, if there are programs that we do have within our collaborative nature of resources that do focus on that, we will give them those referrals to be potentially address some of those issues in the home. And that is the way that we deal with that type of situation. Again, we don't want to be an organization that tries to do too many things. What we have proven to be good at in these 20 years is preparing young people for the workforce and getting them reconnected to their educational outcomes.
And I think the start of it is like what you said earlier, is with the lived experiences.
Yes.
Because just having the ability for youth to have open communication is absolutely key, and being able to express and talk about the things that they're dealing with. I had a program at my church that I met with young girls, and at one point I had to take a sabbatical, and parents were actually calling me like, you have to get back to this program. Like, the kids are requesting it. So I do think that if you give them an outlet, they'll open up more.
Absolutely.
And then things can shift. I'm very familiar with the program. I've been down to New York City.
Sam has been a
I've
huge
had
supporter of ours.
Multiple
Yes.
conversations with Giselle. So I do. I mean, I might be a little bit more ahead of than what you guys do than the other counselors, but I do think it's a wonderful program. I've seen the youth. I've talked to I didn't talk to the youth. The youth talked to me.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing about
It
it,
is.
that they approached the adults. They were the ones coming up and speaking, and they were, open to forming new relationships.
Yes.
And so that was a very key point that I was like, oh, this is wonderful, because you have so many kids that are shut down and kind of introvert because of their home situations.
Absolutely. And that's also one of our 4 tenets that we work on with is communication. And so communication, resource management, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills, which we believe through our curriculum, if we can get our young people to improve and really focus on these 4 skills, regardless of what path they want to take through their high school or post-secondary careers, these are skills which will be foundational to their success.
Yeah.
And
I've
so,
also had the opportunity to speak with, I think it was 2 or 3 of the judges
Yes.
that you guys work with down there, and they had nothing but praises. They were long-term, they were, judges that have been with you guys for a very long time.
yes.
So, and this question was the understanding that you don't get involved a lot with, I'm sorry, with issues that may stretch you, for example. But here in Syracuse with young people, it's shameful for us to admit, but here we have young people that are homeless.
Yes.
And then we know that once those young people get into homelessness, a whole bunch of other things happen. So I don't know if a judge, if other things do happen to a point that a judge has to refer them to you, and they're still homeless, what do you do?
Yeah, so unfortunately, housing affordability is something that is afflicting, I think, all places right now. It is something that we're dealing with in New York. And what we have done is try to really pinpoint organizations that as best they can are working to support, whether it's temporary shelter housing and other resources such as The Door, Exponents, Single Stop, and these are some organizations in New York that kind of service these issues. We want to continue to learn who in Syracuse is potentially supporting and doing that well. And so I would say, Councilman, that our big thing, particularly for this first year, is really learning what some of those issues are, as you're saying, and learning the organizations that we can partner and collaborate with, where we can tell a judge, this young person is experiencing homelessness. We have a direct referral to such and such organization. They're currently working with them, whether it's being for temporary housing or shelter housing. And so that's really part of our job, is not only servicing the young people, but also what does that ecosystem of support look like?
I want to comment that many young people who might have committed a crime are in desperation. They are homeless. They are hungry. If you come in my common council district, you'll see young people committing acts of prostitution, drug abuse, and it's out in the public. I don't want them to live a life of crime. We have to reach out and we have to help them, though. So it's within our own eyes, we see this a lot. So it's not like the days before when a parent had to try to hire a lawyer to get the child out of prison or out of jail. We have to help these young children. We do have a crisis in our schools. We have a crisis in our streets. So it's important that you and Exalt really reach out to help these young people. And I would personally suggest to reach out onto the streets, walk the streets, and reach out to help them. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And we recognize most crimes are crimes, a lot of crimes are crimes of desperation, which is why our pay rate has always been above the minimum wage and significantly. I mean, I don't know how many people here remember their first job. My first job was not $18 an hour. And I should also mention in our alumni program, we also offer internships as well, and it's actually $20 an hour. And which is why we also start paying them. They start accruing pay in week 2 because we recognize committing to this after school. Unfortunately, Councilmember, to your point, young people will find things to do after school sometimes to make money. And so we want to make sure that the financial considerations that unfortunately a lot of our young people have does not serve in direct conflict to them actually attending the program and growing, which is why we don't wait until the internship phase. We start almost immediately with their program, with having them accrue $18 an hour with their participation.
We have great programs, Tully's Touch, Devon's Rec Room. We have it on the north side. Those are great programs
That's
we have.
fantastic to know.
I want you to know that.
What's your fall-off rate? What's your fall-off rate?
Oh, great question. So we have a 70% retention rate in our New York City location. And so very proud of that retention rate. Again, stressing that this is over 4.5 months. And so we're able to retain 70% of our young people through 4.5 months with our program.
What are some of the issues that relate to falling out of a
Yeah, great question again. And so one, I think as we talk about the commitment, I think sometimes young people can underestimate how much it is to commit to that at that specific time. I think the other thing is everything that this council has intimated. There are a lot of different elements that go into young people that are afflicted by poverty. And also the fact that this is a voluntary program. And so young people have to be committed for those 4.5 months, and unfortunately, it is sometimes an issue where the commitment was sometimes overstated, and it's other things that life and all of the things that go with poverty sometimes prevent them from taking advantage for the 4.5 months.
So they're like evaluated and assessed in the beginning. I'd like to see what the curriculum is.
Absolutely, we can absolutely share that.
I mean, is it like a personal thing? This child has an issue with some particular problem, and I mean, do you plug in with the social workers in the schools and all that, because they have a wealth of information usually?
Yeah, so the assessments are really filling into what we call IPPs, and I believe it's on there, which is individualized performance plans. And so each student, through the assessments, through the work of our program coordinators, our teachers, and the 6 staff members that are involved with the young person, create a specific plan that tracks what that level of support will look like for that young person during not only the duration of their time in the core program, but also another IPP done for their alumni program support. I'm more than happy to share with you, as we said, the evaluation of the curriculum and the curriculum elements, as well as the assessments that we do as well.
And you pay them to go to this program, correct?
Excuse me?
I said you pay each child to be there every single day, right?
We pay each child for their participation, yeah.
And Jen, I'm correct, no local match on this? It's the
No,
1.5
I'm sorry.
with nothing
No,
local.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yep, great.
So, say this is a pilot program.
Yes.
Say December 1st, come 2026. Then what?
Great. So this is a sustainability question, which is an amazing question. And so we have always built the organization on not only sustainability, but also building for a financial reserve to be able to expand as well. And so all of our financial support in New York City has been spread out over government, corporate, individual, and then philanthropic support, which is done intentionally, Councilman. As we know, when you depend on one source, if that source goes another direction, it really creates a difficulty with financial viability. And so for New York City, we've been very lucky to have some giants that have supported us. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Mackenzie Scott, we were a recipient of the Mackenzie Scott grant, Tiger Foundation, as well as Pinkerton Foundation and Robin Hood. That same ecosystem that supported us with scalability from Brooklyn to the 5 boroughs is what we're trying to build here in New York. And so all of the support that we have, besides DCJS, is also renewable grants, 1-year renewable grants. And so we have had an incredible success record with our renewed grants, and also with obtaining multi-year grants. Dr. Castro is also a master fundraiser and is actively even fundraising now, connecting with some different foundations such as the Allen Foundation for increased support moving forward. I should also mention that we have a reserve that has also supported us in New York. And so we not only fundraise for sustainability, but also for, in case anything happens in the world, that we have the ability to be able to sustain the organization. I should mention also during COVID that this financial strategy allowed us not only to survive while many nonprofits faltered, but also to expand, as in we expanded to a bigger location in downtown Manhattan at the beginning of COVID, because of our fiscal responsibility and understanding of the dynamic of running a nonprofit.
How many kids have gone through this in New York City?
I can get you an exact number over the 20 years. I will say last year specifically we serviced 434 and then 499 in our alumni program.
And to President Hudson's point, what's the recidivism rate, would you say, like kids dropping out of the program?
Yeah, so we have a 70% retention rate. Yes.
How did you identify Syracuse rather than any of the other upstate cities?
Great question. So this actually came.
I don't get a good question. Everyone else has got a good question, and I haven't got a good question.
That's my fault. Great questions, by the way.
Thank you very much.
So Syracuse, this was in partnership, of course, with DCJS, in identifying the upstate cities that were most in need and really having a specific support area for youth impacted by juvenile justice. In our discussions, it was Syracuse and Utica. And so in conversations with Dr. Castro and Commissioner Rosado, it became very clear and requested, actually, that the support be provided to Syracuse because of some of the issues with juvenile justice the city is experiencing, and also this specific gap with serving this specific youth with nonprofits. And so, as I said, this has been a 3-year plan and work that we've been working on. And thrilled to come in and be able to provide that support to Syracuse in what seems to be a very dire need.
And piggybacking on that statement, I know you're working, hand in hand with Latif with Safer Streets, and you're partnering with EOC for, we do have an OEC, EOC for the job portion. Yep. But in conversations throughout the year of this talks, there are organizations who do feel a little threatened by, you guys coming. How are you attempting to ease those tensions and make sure that there are some collaborations within those other organizations that serve some of those same population?
So Syracuse has some amazing nonprofits, as I think as the council has intimated. And so I think as we come into this community, it's one, also learning from these nonprofits that have been here historically, I think is the first thing. We don't come in thinking that we know Syracuse well enough to launch our full pilot initially. And so as I like to say, you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. And the nonprofits that have been operating here have some very valuable institutional knowledge. So I think it's one, connecting with organizations like Project Rise. We just had a great meeting with them last week with organizations, Latif, with you as well, with individuals that have been doing this work and doing it well. I think, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Harlem Children's Zone, down in New York City, but I come from that organization that, as we all know, promised neighborhoods and a mass replication project. And one of the most important things with replication is also understanding that every ecosystem is different and that you want to learn from the people who have been in that ecosystem first and foremost. I think the other thing is really identifying the services that these organizations provide that can support also in our work. Many of these organizations are working with the same young people. And so
that's what I was gonna also say, is there overlap between who the courts may recommend and who may already be in these programs that they may say, like, it may be better to, push them this way so that we can work with someone else.
Yes, I think there doesn't have to be that level of competition. I think, as we said, our organization is very focused on workforce and working with young people who are criminal justice impacted. And I think this is part of the reason why we do our resource management assessment with our young people, is to find out what other organizations and entities do you have that you're working with. We have extensive collaborative approaches, whether it's be through progress notes in New York City, which we will replicate here, to also consistently communicating with referral partners and referring out. And one of the things we talk about is, if 5 of us are working with the same young person, each person can play their role. And if that young person has great outcomes, that is beneficial to all individuals that are involved. And so we really want to stress, and I want to stress as the Chief Program Officer, is the spirit of collaboration with the Syracuse community, to learn from them and to also work with the young people in a way that doesn't clash, but is in fact informing their own trajectory to success.
Well, we don't want each organization 5 organizations work with 1 kid, because we want to be able to reach more kids.
Yes.
So just need to make sure that don't
Fair.
happen.
I have a question. It's Deputy Mayor. This one I need from you, because pending the success of Exalt, will there be, after the pilot, do you foresee there being a 26-27 budget ask?
Of the council? No, I don't. To the point of DCGS committed to Exalt. They fund them in New York City. They fund them to be here in Syracuse. They also have, as he mentioned, a large philanthropic arm. I made it clear to DCGS that the city did not have money to fund this initiative. So moving into the budget year, I do not expect that. That said, it would be up to the council if I come back and say, we may need this or that. We really are, they're just going to get started here as we go into January, almost now, December. I have to tell you, the first thing they did was come to the Syracuse for 2 days. And we were over at One Park Place. The large conference room was full of all of the not-for-profits, police. They have been meeting with Judge Cecil and our juvenile justice partners, probation. They have been doing that repeatedly via Zoom or in town. So they are really engaging in a network of individuals to know how the systems work here and how they can move in to provide. And I've said before, sometimes we find ourselves in mission creep. It's important that their program keeps the main thing, and that is adjudicated youth in those systems, ensuring that we're providing the service. I don't anticipate coming to the council, definitely for this new budget season, but the next budget season, we'll see how the funding is going to go. We don't know how New York State is going to be able to fund anything in this, this next fiscal year. They're going to be meeting their own problems, so they're going to be resetting as well, and have been warning us about that. Okay? Yes.
All set, Deputy Mayor. You're all set.
Come to you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
yeah.
Just say for us. Okay.
That's 2 of you.
Okay. You did.
Yeah, go to her. Yeah.
Okay.
So, are you done, Madam President?
I'm done. I've just.
Okay. So, one of the things that really caught my attention last week when we met was this idea of where you place the young people. And I thought it's very unique in the way you are going about it, and especially as somebody that is quite involved in the workforce development.
Yeah.
Your approach, it check off some of my philosophical approach to workforce development, right? And so maybe talk a little bit about where you place them, and also
Absolutely.
talk about, where some of these individuals that have successfully graduated from your program are.
Absolutely. So, as I said, we have over 150 internship partners in New York. And historically, through our 20 years, we have sought out
Cut you off, but I heard what you said, 150 intern partnerships in New York. So what
New York City.
In New York City, got it.
Sorry.
So with any of our participants, once they pass your course, would they be given the same opportunities to be able to go to New York to get some of those internships?
That's actually a great question. And so, yes, it's actually a great question. So,
God.
Councilmember, with that, we have already identified a few internship partners that have worked with us in New York, Park and K, Back Chamber, Parlay Magazine, the Roll Initiative, which are some media entities that are actually very interested in expanding their work with our young people to also, in New York City, to individuals in Syracuse as well.
Okay.
I should, just giving you everyone a bit of insight. So historically, we have purposely sought out businesses, corporations, organizations that young people would not typically have access to, particularly young people that have been afflicted by involvement with the criminal justice system. And so we also don't pick out internship partners that teenagers typically go to for their first job. So for instance, we don't have fast casual, fast food restaurants, fast clothing stores. And so we've relied on places like law firms, architecture firms, as well as movie studios, art galleries, other nonprofits. So places like the Innocence Project, DBI, which is an architecture firm, Brooklyn Children's Museum, as well as some of the defenders' offices that also refer into us. They also serve as internship partners as well for us. Last week, during our visit here, we were able to secure commitments, initial commitments from 4 Syracuse local entities, including SUNY Upstate, the Tech Garden, MOST, as well as Everson Museum.
And we have some architectural firms here, and they've been curious because I've gotten some calls as to why when they see students come into the classrooms, they don't see any students of color.
And so that's something that we are very mindful of. And so part of the internship model, also, Councilman, to your point, is also preparing a lot of these entities which have not typically employed young people who have been not only of color, but also who have been afflicted by criminal justice involvement, with how to support them. It's also a big reason, Council, why we don't put the burden of payment on our internship partners. I think, as we all know, getting someone to agree to take someone is a lot. Getting someone to agree to take someone and pay them is even more. And so the way we structure our internship model is that all we ask of our internship partners is to curate an amazing first work experience for them. And so, as we know, the first job that a lot of people have shapes the way that they view the world of work. And so we have always said that we want our internship partners to provide and curate that great experience and also serve as the first block in their network for our young people for them to be able to call on when they're done. Same model will be replicated in Syracuse. And so as we went over last week, Councilmember, we have, for instance, we'd like to target Barclay Damon, Terrakeet, and we have a list of about 10 to 12 internship sites that we'd like to look at. I would love any recommendations or connections that this council has as we start to build out our internship partners, but we were thrilled to secure those 4 commitments last week.
And can you just speak to Exalt in New York's ability to reach the different cultures? Because we have a huge variety of new Americans, for one. Some American-born new Americans. They're a little different. But just, making sure that, like, that cultural differences, and them being able to engage in such programs at the same time.
Absolutely. And so Councilman and I went over this last week, both of us connecting as first generation. And so my family is of Trinidadian descent. I am the first generation born here. And so a large amount of our young people that we serve are West Indian first generation, African first generation, as well as Latinx. And so we're very cognizant of those cultural differences or cultural connections that we need to have, which is also why we have an extremely diverse staff in New York from not only people of color, but people of color representing a variety of different places around the world. As we all know, our CEO is a Puerto Rican woman, and actually the only Puerto Rican woman leading a major nonprofit in New York City, which of course we know representation matters. And so we're very cognizant of the way that we operate with our staff with that. And it is also something that we have at the forefront of our mind when thinking about Syracuse and making sure that our staff correctly represents the demographics that we're serving.
And so have you guys been in, I don't know, maybe this question for Sharon or Lateef, like, has there been any introductions to, like, I don't know how well La Liga is working right now, but La Liga or Haji, like those organizations that represent some of those communities.
So in
has there been
those
any
2 days that we
introductions
talked about, we did a mass
Yes.
outreach to everyone. We'll have to go back over those attendance sheets to find out who made it. Whoever did not and get the introduction to the program, we'll ensure that happens.
Okay.
And I have a architecture firm I'd like to put
Well,
in
just
the-
I whispered to Lateef that we have to remember also in the JSCB, there's an intern component to the diversity plan there. And so that's an opportunity. We'll make sure that we're introducing this team to that team that has all of these architectural firms. And as you know, we're going through the RFP process now to secure the first firms for the $400 million JSCB project.
Any other questions?
Do a good one, Pat. Do a good one.
You got it, son. Come on,
I promise I got one. Question, I promise you.
Jalen Brunson got 31 points last
He
night.
did. I'm a huge Knicks fan.
Where's the good question?
Great comment. Good comment. Good comment. Good comment. Good win last night. So yes.
So, any other questions?
No.
All right. So to close it off, I asked that question initially because, from a workforce development perspective, we, in a nutshell, the point of workforce development is to be able to get people into places
Yes.
where they are able to merit what they love with their skill, And that's in a nutshell is career. Job, yes, you can do, but the goal is careers, right? And one of the things that I have come to know, especially when you are working with individuals that are struggling, trying to get there, is being able to model the future for them.
Absolutely.
As opposed to the present.
Absolutely.
Right? Being able to say, okay, you are here now, rather than giving you what you are. Let me give you a little bit of flavor of what you could have.
Love that description.
Right?
Absolutely.
Let me give you a little flavor of what you could have. And the way you do and the way you will go about it has a lot to do with whether this individual buy it or not, right? And being able to frame that picture in their mind
Yes.
of what could be, in which, a lot of people, many people, are intrigued by what could be the interest, the ability to keep dreaming, right?
And it's one of the foundational questions, actually, of our candidate assessment counselor, is we ask our young people when they're first coming to the program, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And part of that is we recognize that one of the unfortunate ramifications of poverty is being in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you often don't have the ability to dream. I will say that is probably the question our young people struggle with most. And so a big part of why that's a question is we go through the course of the program trying to get them to the point that they're dreaming and thinking about what their careers are going to be like, what they want to do with their future endeavors. And this is where the internship, the power of that really comes in, is because if our young people do say, I can't really think that far, but I'd like to be maybe a lawyer if I could, or I'd like to work in tech. We have the ability to take that little initial spark and give them a taste of that through the internship program. So our internship matching does go a long way in terms of connecting them with how they answer that initial question, or maybe don't, or have a small answer that we're able to then give them a taste, to your point, of what that career in life will look like, which will improve their ability to dream.
I just want to piggyback on that, and you may have mentioned it, but I didn't write it down, so I don't know it. But I know you talked about the alumni program, but
Yes.
are there any alumni that work for the organization where some of the youth can see, like, I was you at one point in time? So like similar, like I just put it out there, I'm Point for College, they have a lot of alumni who, one, work for them, and the one right here. And so a lot of them are in the community. People see them in some of these top jobs. So Like, do you have anyone in
We
the
do. We
organization?
actually have one of our fantastic teachers who actually just got promoted to a senior teacher, is actually an alumni and a scholarship recipient from Exalt. We also have one of our program coordinators is also a scholarship recipient as well as employed by Exalt. Our alumni often come back. We actually have in each one of our cycles an alumni panel, in which some of our successful alumni come back to speak to the young people as they are on the precipice of completing their core program and going into the alumni program, Councilman, to your point, so they can see what is next. And so it has been incredibly powerful for us to be able to display some of our alumni who are now lawyers, business owners, working in tech, working in finance, come back and our young people see that the 4.5 months is actually just the start of their journey. It is not the end.
Yes.
Janet, Mr. Allen, Deputy Mayor, and Lateef, will it be safe to say that midway the program, that we can get a report out on how you're doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Other questions? Well, I want to thank all of you,
Thank you.
fellow councilors, thank you, and that will conclude our meeting for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks for taking the time.